Okay, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, wherever you are joining us on Facebook Live, and this is Habib Ali, your host for the One Love podcast. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, shanti, and peace for each and every one of you. We're just grateful that we have had the opportunity to interview some of our amazing guests. And tonight, I'm very excited because we have with us a special guest, Habiba Diallo. I've known her for a while, but more importantly, she has just made the headlines on CBC and around the world with her latest book, Black to School, given it's Black History Month. I'm sorry for the cliche of having guests who are Black on the Black History Month, but we have interviewed all kinds of folks on the podcast. But it's only rightly so that I am honored to have a young author. She's Muslim. She comes from an African background, both from the Caribbean and Africa, which we hear about. But she's Canadian, and she's very much into social justice and helping children in Africa. So I met her a few years ago doing great work. So Habiba, how have you been during COVID?
Thank you, Habeeb. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks so much for having me on your program. During COVID, I've been doing my best. I've had down days, I've had my up days, like so many people. It honestly hasn't been the easiest thing. And I'm happy for opportunities like this to connect with another human being because sometimes it just gets so mentally difficult and depressing. So it hasn't been easy at all.
And you were saying that knowing that you live next to the water, you can just skip over to the beach anytime.
I wish it's a background. This is a virtual background.
It's a virtual background, but you have had the opportunity to live in many countries and travel many places. But currently, you're in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
So what's the mood like in Nova Scotia, given like so many provinces are having the Freedom Convoy causing this protest and disruption? What is the mood like out in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, mixed, some people are for, some people are against. I think everyone is generally tired of the pandemic and would like to see restrictions eased. I know that's what I would like to see. So inshallah, I hope this is the end.
Yes, it's near the end, if not the end. So Habiba Diallo, the daughter of Dr. Afua Cooper, but more importantly, you're your own identity, your own person. You have not. This is not the first time you have published a book. Black in School. Why the title?
So the title is so fitting, actually, because it speaks directly to what the book is about, and it's about being Black in school and some of the realities that come with being a Black person in school. So,
And it's multi-layered. I mean, given the fact that you're a woman, you're Muslim, you're minority, Canadian born, but still seen as a minority and a Black person. I mean, there's so many layers and multi-layers of systemic racism and discrimination that could come with that. Did you dissect these different layers in your book as well?
I do, to an extent, and I speak about that a little bit in the introduction, that that I'm speaking from my perspective as a Black female in particular. But I'm so happy you bring up those layers, because I do have these multiple identities, female, Muslim, Black, African, Caribbean, so forth. And which means I occupy many spaces. People like that word, spaces.
Yes.
I occupy many spaces at once. And I think now in the wider society, not just to speak of my specific high school experience, but to speak about Canadian society more broadly, we're seeing all those intersections. And lately I had been feeling very emotional because it's the anniversary a couple of weeks ago in January marked the anniversary of the Quebec mosque massacre,
Yes.
in which Muslim people were killed, racialized Muslim people. They were Africans, and then we also know in Edmonton, we all know of the Black Muslim women who were being attacked in their hijab, wearing hijabs while they were going about on public transportation. So all of these issues, they're close to my heart. They're close to home, because they affect us. They affect you and I on a day-to-day basis. We all are somehow caught up in them, and they make us reflective and at times fearful. So it's really important to address these issues and to address these layers, which I address in my book, and I think which we we should try to address as much as possible, at the level not only of education but also of government. I know in the past I've written to the federal government via my federal MP about some of these issues of Islamophobia, and I know other Muslims have, and it's so important that we do. However, it's tiring. It's so much of a burden. It takes so much of a toll on us when we see, like what happened in Quebec a couple of years ago, or what happens to Muslim women when they're assaulted on public transportation. But then you think that it could be anyone really, so hence why it's so important to address these issues. So I'm really happy that you brought up these layers, all these layers.
Well, coming back to Black to School, it's a journal that you penciled and penned during your days in high school, which I was fortunate to meet you.
In Toronto, I was at two high schools in Toronto. I was at Harvard Collegiate and Vaughan Road Academy. And then I attended some high schools in Halifax where I completed 10, 11, and 12.
So Vaughan Academy, that's where Drake attended?
Where Drake attended.
Good. So what was your experience like that your book has, enumerated this, of course, and I hope listeners will be buying your book. I was going through your mother's recent book, The Underground Railroad in Toronto, and some of the stories there. And it seems like these stories have not ended. These stories keep repeating themselves. So tell me, what was it like? Like, give me a story, like from your journal.
Yeah, so I have one. It's called it's the it's called This English Class. I have the book beside me, and I can refer to it so that way, it's on page 13. It's called This English Class Was F'd, the F word. And I was in a bathroom stall, and this girl, she was outside of the stall in the bathroom, and she was saying how her teacher goes on a tangent about Black people. She said she always goes on a tangent about Black people. I know racism exists, but there are other things to do. And she said that English class was F. So I was in the bathroom stall overhearing all of this, and I felt so offended. I felt so shocked to my core. So I got out of the stall and I said something to her. I said, for people like myself, racism, it's an everyday experience inside the classroom, outside the classroom. So I said, perhaps you should take a minute and listen to your teacher when she goes off on those tangents, And so these are some of the
Wow.
anecdotes that I share throughout the book. It gives you a glimpse into the day-to-day. So it's nice. It's very enlightening. It's telling. It's very funny at times too. So it's a nice read. Yeah, it is.
Saying, coming to
Black in school.
When you say it's funny, I mean that's a segue to another interesting concept that many a times we have to find our own resilience and strength in humor and to laugh off some of these experiences. Do you find that when you said some of the stories are funny, that you intervene in your own experience by creating humor out of your own experience?
Without a doubt. We
Yeah.
have to. We as people of color, we have to, because sometimes if we don't laugh, we would cry, right? So so we have to. And that's one thing that I learned through high school is it hardened me a bit. So by the time I went into university, I was coming from a completely different angle. I was taking it from a different angle. I didn't have to respond to everything. It was much better. And sometimes with age and maturity that comes, Whereas in high school, I found that I was responding to everything. I was responding to everything, but that's not healthy. And it's unfortunate because we're put in these contexts, in these very abrasive environments. You know, if you're a Black student or a racialized student, a Muslim, visibly Muslim student, you're in these very abrasive environments at school, and you're constantly provoked, and so naturally you would respond. Um, but that comes with such a toll emotionally. So I felt by the time I was in university, I could approach things in a much more lighthearted fashion. And not to excuse people's ignorance, not to excuse
Right.
racism. You know, we do have to tackle it. We do need to address it as best as we can, but try in a sense to put up a barrier, if you will. And I'm sure you can, you know, shed your own insight on what I'm saying, because I'm sure you
Yes.
have a very good sense of that.
Of course, the the cliche or the stereotype that is placed on Black people is like they're good for athletics and music and entertainment, but they're not good at academic achievement or excellence in leadership or in business. But in Black History Month, thank goodness we have seen much more of that being highlighted, the Black excellence. Habiba, you are one of those very unique persons in that category that you have achieved, despite of the challenges and the traumas, you have achieved so much in your lifetime, educationally, social justice. You've been awarded many times. Can you tell us a bit about when Maria Munsif, for example, the MP had invited you to speak about gender issues and you responded to that? What was the journey towards that?
It's a good question. So the journey towards that was really just my activism around women's health and the awareness building that I've been doing since I was a young girl, really, since I was 12 years old. That's when I became interested in fistula and took up that mantle. And the when her office got in touch with me, I'm trying to remember how they identified me. Oh, because it was a couple of months prior to the Women Deliver conference in Vancouver, the big Women Deliver. It's a large international conference around gender equality and women's rights. So that was coming up in June of that year, June of 2019, and they wanted to make an announcement. Minister Monsef's office had wanted to make an announcement around it. And so they got in touch with me as one of the participants, as someone who would be attending the Women Deliver conference as part of the Canadian delegation in June of that year. So they asked if I would participate in the announcement in May of that year with the minister, and I agreed. So that's how that came about.
Wow, and she's also one of those successful Muslim women coming from Afghanistan
Mhm.
as a refugee, and she has made it. I had the pleasure of working with her in for the Abraham Festival in Peterborough, and I know when she was pretty younger and how much she has journeyed. So that takes me to the question of fistula. You have from a very young age you have been fighting this fight on fistula in Ethiopia, and you have brought it to Ethiopia. You've brought it back to the Canadian. So you're across the country. You have engaged people of all faiths and practitioners and donors in the community. Tell us a bit about what started that journey and how successful you have been with that journey.
So what started it was my when I learned about the story of a young girl from Niger in West Africa, for those who don't know. And she was named Anafgat Ayuba, and she suffered from an obstetric fistula at a very young age. She was a teenager, about 13, 14 years old. Her baby died. She had a stillborn baby. And sometime later, she developed this fistula, which is a hole between her private parts. Between her birth canal and her bladder. And also, I think hers might have been a double fistula, which means it's not only between the birth canal and the bladder, but also between the birth canal and the rectum. And from this hole, the woman or the girls who are affected, they constantly leak waste products. So that's urine or feces. So she had that condition for a little while before she was treated successfully by surgeons in Niger's capital, Niamey. So I read about her story online, and I was just so taken by it. I was so moved. I couldn't believe that such a horrible condition existed on the planet still today, because it's a very ancient condition, dates back to ancient Egypt. We know, it was an issue then, it's still an issue today. So I was very shocked. I was very saddened. She was so young. We were about the same age at the time. I was 12 when I read about her story. And that's what inspired me to start doing research, to start learning, so to start reaching out to agencies and to doctors who are working on this problem, to start visiting centers across Africa, such as in Ethiopia, such as in West Africa. And so a couple of years later, when I was 15, I started a nonprofit, and I just became very passionate about awareness building and about fundraising. And so we've done some fundraising. You asked how successful I've been with it. I've had many events in Canada, some in the UK as well. I've written a book, short story, which I self-published. Yeshi Alem learns about fistula. Most recently, we completed some fundraising for Ghana, for fistula patients in Ghana. So it's been a journey. It's been a struggle, I must say too, at the same time, especially where fundraising is concerned, especially where, finding support for some of the awareness building for my book is concerned.
We're in Ghana because I do some work in Ghana too.
So in Ghana, the fistula efforts, they happen in Tamale in the north, so Tamale, in Yendi, in Mankesim, and then also a little bit in the capital city at a center named Korlebu, where they treat some women there. So I was able to visit all those sites, but the fundraising we did will go towards a skills training for some of the patients who will be taken from. They'll gather women from all those from different geographic
incredible
regions.
Work. I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you, Habiba.
Thank you
Habiba
so much.
Diallo, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're joining us, Habiba Diallo, the young author of Black in School. She journaled her experiences as a young Black woman in school, high school in Toronto, and today her book is trending. It's Black History Month, and we are so proud and grateful to have her with us. Habiba, what was your experience as a child growing up? Was it in Canada or somewhere else?
Yeah, so
And what were the challenges and how did you overcome them?
I grew up here in Toronto.
Yes.
Yeah, so as a child, I spent my childhood in Toronto. It's very good. As a child, I don't know that I had very many challenges. I came from a very loving home. I was very encouraged by my parents. I felt affirmed by my parents. I had the privilege, I'll say, actually, I had the privilege of attending an Afrocentric school for a couple of years. So that too really helped to ground me in my identity and feel confident moving through the world. So I'd say I had a really good childhood. When I was 14, that's when I lost my father. So that changed things so abruptly and so dramatically. And it was really a defining moment in my life. But Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy I can speak to you as a Muslim brother about this, because I feel like my faith is what got me through, praying, that I had salah, that I had this gift of being able to pray. It was the best thing when you're dealing with loss.
Yes.
Because I was so young and I was still in high school and so forth, still trying to just find my way in the world, find myself, learn about who I am, and develop self-esteem as I grew into adulthood and so forth. So it was really such a blow. And so I can relate to, I guess, other young people who have experienced something similar.
I remember that I made dua for your dad as well when he passed away. I was told about it. And the community loved him. He was a very loving man. Your mom, of course, she's extraordinary in her community activism, her Islam, and her love for her community. The work that I do as a prison chaplain, I mean, she used to do that work years before we got the laws protesting against injustice. Do you think you inherit some of those characteristics of standing up for for the downtrodden and the unfortunate from your parents?
Without a doubt, I don't think I had a choice. I think it came naturally.
Beautiful. Now, what was your journey like in the for high school and tertiary education and beyond? What was your journey like? Did you find any obstacles, and how did you overcome them?
Well, yeah, in high school, several obstacles around belonging, around culture, as outlined in my memoir, as outlined in the book. Um, in university, not so much. In university, different, maybe certain lifestyle challenges, certain academic challenges that many students um, experience. Yeah, administrative things, dealing with dealing with the bureaucracy in university and all that kind of thing. But nothing around, say, identity or belonging or those kind of things, which were more of an issue for me in high school. And the way I overcame them was, let's say, was having something outside of myself, from which I could derive so much pleasure, so much enjoyment. So this passion I had for ending obstetric fistula, it helped me a lot because I had something to look forward to outside of school, something that was bigger, much bigger
Right.
um, than myself, So that's what I would tell young people or students in high school who are struggling. Find something you're passionate about. It could be soccer, it could be a sport, it could be dancing, it could be
Yes.
swimming, it could be writing. Find something that you love so much, something that gives you so much pleasure. And when you're having issues at school, just think about that, look towards that, look forward to that.
It could be poetry.
It could
And
be poetry.
what about your? And that brings me to the question about your art as well. You write poetry. You have dabbled with some music. You have dabbled with some rap poetry. You have your mom is a Dr. Afua Cooper. She has published poetry. But coming back to yourself and the arts, what form of arts have you pursued outside of your social justice work?
So definitely writing. I mean, this is a book, so that, but I also do a lot of fiction writing, which I'm
Right.
which I love. I gain so much pleasure from it. I want to pursue that more. So I'm very interested in fiction. I love fiction. I have many pieces of fiction that I'm working on, others that I've written, that I've entered into competitions, that have
Oh
performed
wow.
well in competitions, some that are in anthologies. It's in the Bristol Short Story Prize Anthology, Volume 13. Um, my work was, I was a finalist in the 2020 prize. So one of my fiction pieces was included in that. So
So that's Bristol in England.
Bristol in England. Um,
Congratulations again.
thank you very much. Yeah, so I have various artistic interests, multimedia interests.
Amazing. So you have quite an imaginative mind. Coming to the Caribbean, you have roots in Jamaica. Do you think, given the form of music and poetry and the camaraderie that we enjoy in the Caribbean, it helped to characterize your fictional writing?
That is a very good question. Um, Perhaps, yes. Yeah, to an extent, but I would say more through my mother. Perhaps it came more through my mother growing up, hearing some of her stories, hearing some of her poetry. Um, I probably absorbed a lot of that um, by osmosis,
Yes.
sort of,
I
just
was at your
because.
book launch, right, at a different book list in Toronto a few years ago on the fistula. That book, how successful has that book been?
Yeah, so it had a lot of success in the early stages when I first self-published. I was a student, undergraduate student then in my first or second year, in my second year of university. So that initial print did really well, and I promoted it across different campuses. And then when I came home in the summer, I had events in Halifax, I had events in Toronto. Um, I'll need to do another print of that book and then also market it because it's a very important story. It's been a harder one to market and to promote, I must say. So I'm just sort of, I guess, revising my strategy and thinking a little bit about how I want to carry that one forward.
Well, your publicist will be very happy with you, knowing that you have not left any stone unturned in getting that book out. And maybe you've learned a thing or two to promote your new book, Black in School. As an author and someone who knows some of the challenges, not all, of promoting one's book, um, you depend a lot upon friends and family, but also on your social media platform. What has been your social media platform like in promoting your current book? I noticed that you've been trending in certain places as with the book. Can you tell our audience a bit about that?
My social media platform has included LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and I've been sharing so many updates about the book, features. I've been in some literary magazines so far, Quill and Choir, that's a well-known Canadian literary magazine, Coast. I did a couple of presentations on CBC. They were radio interviews. Um, so I've been quite busy promoting it and on across various media outlets and across various media outlets. So I'd say so far it's been very well received. There's been a lot of interest and it's been doing well. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So, how can our audience find a copy of your book, a signed copy? Tell us how we can get a copy of your book.
It's at bookstores near you, whichever bookstore you have in mind. If you're in Toronto, you can go to a different book list, pick up a copy. You can go to Chapters Indigo. That's a very big one. It's at Chapters Indigo across the country. If you want to go in person, many people, they prefer to shop online now. So you can get it on Chapters Indigo online, Barnes and Noble online, Amazon online. I also really want to encourage listeners and viewers to purchase it from my publisher, directly from my publisher, University of Regina Press. I links to that on my social media, any of my social media. And I think, Habeeb, we can include links in the YouTube or Facebook post
Yes.
afterwards. So I can give them some links, but very easy to find anywhere in store or online. Hashtag Black in School. For those who do want to pick up a copy in store, I've signed several copies at bookstores in Halifax and also in Toronto. So I've been to a couple Chapters Indigos in Toronto and I've signed copies. So you can get one Eaton Center, Yorkdale Mall. I've signed copies at several stores. So they might just be able to find a
Pretty
signed
good. Pretty
copy
good.
in store.
Pretty good.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. I'm so proud of you. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, wherever you're tuning in from, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Shanti, and peace for each and every one of you. It's been such a pleasure to talk to our young author, Muslim, female, Black author, Habiba Diallo, Black History Month that we're observing. And it's such a great opportunity to highlight the stories of excellence among our beautiful Black community, for a lack of the right terminology, which is very challenging. We don't um, have the right terminology at times of um, in this month we are learning about the importance of not only the slave trade and not only the civil rights movement and injustices against Black people in North America, but the achievements, the love, the guidance, the business acumen, so many beautiful things beyond the being athletes and musicians. So I thank you. Make sure you grab a copy of Habiba's book, Black to School, hashtag Black to School.
Black
We
in
post
School.
Black,
Hashtag Black in
Black in
School.
School, sorry, hashtag Black in School. As you heard her story, how she was discriminated as a Black woman, as a Black girl in school in Toronto. And I will be posting the link to the book Thank you very much. You have the parting words, Habiba.
To everyone, take care of yourself. Be easy on yourself during these very trying times. Attend to your mental health. It's not easy for anyone. Don't look at anyone and think they have it easy. It's difficult for every single person at this moment. So be easy on yourself and be easy on other people. Thank you so much, Habib, for having
And
me.
what's your next step? What's the next big goal?
um, So my next big goal actually is to see this book in classrooms throughout the country. That's my
Beautiful.
goal. Mhm.
I love that. I love that. See, this book is part of the curriculum across the country. And we know that, shout out to many of the educators who are doing that already, including material in the curriculum throughout the year, not only in February. So to see your book in the classroom, of course, in the curriculum, in the text that teachers use to teach students, that would be awesome. And that's very much essential and needed. Thank you very much. And assalamu alaikum and good
Alaikum
evening.
assalam. Thank you, Habib. Good evening. Bye.